Inspector General of the National Police Service, the Director General of the Communications Authority of Kenya, the leadership of the NC4, participants of this workshop, ladies and gentlemen. It gives me great pleasure to be here at the onset. And as I was thinking about coming here, I said, I thank God I have lived to see this day when we are developing a national cybersecurity strategy, as it were. Why? Because all of us need to accept the reality of this life, that the cyberspace is where all action is going to be, all meaningful action. As governments, as private sector players, all of us have invested heavily in the cyberspace. And we probably have no option. As long as we live and as long as we transact, the bulk of our businesses and the bulk of our activities are going to operate and ride on the cyberspace. And policing the cyberspace is probably one of the most difficult challenges that any group of people would face, or any country would face, as it were. For those of us in the security sector, like my colleague and my brother, the Inspector General of Police, the cyberspace remains the present and the future nightmare, because this is where very sophisticated and dynamic crime is going to occur. And this is the space where, as I said, creating a very sustainable infrastructure for policing is difficult, not just to our government, but to governments around the world. But I'm gratified to note that we are making a big step, and this particular workshop here and what we are discussing today, developing a national cybersecurity strategy, quite frankly, is a big step in ensuring that the cyber environment that we operate in and we're going to operate is secured, and that we are acquiring capabilities to secure it for ourselves, for our economy, for our society, and for future generations. Needless to say, for example, that in the last 10 years, growth in technology and growth in investment in technology has been phenomenal. I mean, whether you look at the mobile money transfer, where we have hit about 6.8 trillion in terms of transfer from where we were nearly 1.9 trillion 10 years ago, whether you look at the number of mobile phone subscribers, whether you're looking at the amount of business that's transacted digitally, it is abundantly clear for us that this is an environment that is growing and growing rapidly. It's true, and I agree with Mr. Jiloba when he says that the challenges we face are global, and because of that, the cyber environment is dynamic, and so are the cybersecurity challenges. Since we sat here this morning, for the last few minutes we have been here, chances are that hackers have attempted more than 100 of our critical national data systems. This morning I was telling the IG that why we need to invest very heavily in cybersecurity is because there are countries and institutions that are now investing in raiding the cyberspace of other countries. So whereas as security people we have been worrying about territorial integrity in a physical sense, now we are going to operate in a ubiquitous space where our territorial integrity is defined by how safe we try to keep the information we have and we keep the systems that we have. I cannot therefore overemphasize the need for collaboration, coordination, and ensuring that we work together. Building an interinstitutional infrastructure such as we are doing through the NC4 is not only a guarantee to success, but it's also a guarantee to the fact that we will all be involved in securing our cyberspace. No one is going to be left unaffected. Therefore, I want to ask even institutions that constitutionally consider themselves independent or try sometimes to argue for and defend what they call independence, to now step up, dust themselves up, invest and engage with all of us in terms of securing the work that we do. I'm therefore asking my colleagues in the NC4 that cybersecurity is no longer going to be an issue for us in the security sector to deal with, or for institutions in the executive branch of government, or for institutions in the private sector to deal with. We must build a very wide reach so that we reach out to independent actors, constitutionally independent institutions like the judiciary and independent offices, so that we work together. Because no one is going to be left unaffected. In this case, we must create a cyber environment that is inclusive, safe for everyone, and supportive of the business that everyone is going to carry out. Therefore, the launch of a cybersecurity strategy for our country, again, puts us ahead as we ought to be. And with it, I am grateful that we are going to address cyber governance structures that will embrace the whole of government approach. I've talked about inclusivity and ensuring that everyone is on board as we work on this. It is going to minimize existing risks and reduce some of the challenges that we face. If we have been complaining about files disappearing in courtrooms and court environments, or records disappearing in government environments, or payment systems being affected, the cyberspace sometimes makes that even worse, because some of those files will disappear forever. They will be deleted, they will be interfered with, as it were. And that gives us a reason why we need to work together, all of us, to strengthen this. This strategy will ensure protection and resilience of our critical information infrastructure. The last 4 years or so, my colleague Joe Musheru, the Minister for ICT, and I have spent a good part of our time in court. That unfortunately is part of what we have to do on the Huduma bill and the Huduma number. When we thought ourselves that we are doing such a wonderful thing as a country, creating a single source of truth, collecting personal data so that we are able to provide services better, the others would thought otherwise. And the argument revolved around rights, revolved around protection of information, and so on and so forth. We respect their argument and we respect their concerns, because as public officials, we cannot denigrate their views. But look, we are better off building systems that collect and coordinate this data and information and develop a single source of truth that we protect than have scattered data sets across the board. So the drive for Huduma is important and very crucial, and is one way towards moving us to a much more protective, a much more clearer and reliable basis of operation. I hope as we go forward, and once we have created these coordinated data sets, our cybersecurity strategy that we are developing here today will ensure that we protect this data, and we also meet the anxieties and the concerns of our colleagues about the protection of their information and their data. We will enhance our cybersecurity capacity building through this strategy. Let me say this here, in the interest of full disclosure. I think now is the time, even for us in the security sector, to build heavily internal capacities to deal with cyber security challenges. Our Criminal Investigations Department, our National Police Service, our National Intelligence Service, our Kenya Defense Forces, now is the time for us to invest heavily in cybersecurity, because the danger and the challenge next time is going to be in the cyberspace. We must be prepared, we must be ready to fight in that cyberspace in defense of our country and protect our country's integrity, as it were. We hope that this strategy will also help certification and awareness of a young generation and the various new institutional efforts that are going to lead to innovation and developing service provision in the cyberspace. I believe that the cybersecurity strategy we're working on will enable us to review our laws and regulations while we embrace international standards and best practices. Rather obviously, I think, because a lot of our trade, a lot of our economic interactions are going to ride on technology, and we're going to operate in the cyberspace. Now is the time to critically look at our laws and our regulations, especially those that affect commerce, contracts, and agreements on delivery of services, standardization of service delivery. Now is the time for institutions like Kenya Bureau of Standards to start looking at stepping up a new standardization program that writes on technology, so that as we go forward, we review our statutory ecosystem to conform with the demands of the emerging cyber-based environment and cyber-based businesses. I believe this strategy will help us and enable us as we walk in that direction. And finally, I am grateful that through this strategy, we can now then step onto the regional and international platform and begin to engage with others effectively. You cannot go into regional discussions and global discussions with nothing to offer. We will learn better when we have defined, organized, and created a standardized environment through which we need to operate. I cannot overemphasize the need for all of us to seize this opportunity, to see what it is that we can do to improve our cyber space in the country and to keep it much more secure. The challenges we face, for example, those of us in the security sector, are many. We are approaching elections. The big debate now is about, how we are going to behave with each other. The era of fake news, the unprecedented abuse of social media, and so on and so forth. That's why I said at the onset that for my brother, the Inspector General, and myself, this strategy cannot have come at the right time, because it will enable us to now start building capacities in our institutions to help police the cyberspace, because it has been a tough call to police the cyberspace. We are dealing with all manner of cases, people operating either from our country or other countries, maligning or interfering with political systems, of parties or groups or people and so on. And of course, the usual abuses that are there. But as I've said several times before, we are a democratic environment. Kenyans chose democracy, and we gave it to ourselves through our constitution. The government is not going to act otherwise. We will respect freedoms, in the hope that as we respect the freedoms of others, those who would like to exercise their freedoms in expression, in association, in supporting their preferred candidates and individuals, will do so while taking into consideration the welfare of the whole of society. No amount of insults, as I've said before, no amount of criticism of us in the executive branch of government will tempt us enough to resort to retrogressive acts of interfering with freedoms like shutting the internet or, clawing back on freedoms we have acquired through the Constitution and through the law. We have a great country, and God has been kind and gracious to us, and He has blessed us with a wonderful country, wonderful people with incredible potential. And this is where I end my remarks by saying that in the development of this cybersecurity strategy, we are looking for a way of ensuring that we exploit our potential to the full without hurting any of our businesses or hurting each other. How great would it be if we were able to go to the farthest extent that our imagination and innovation can take us, while we preserve our national unity, while we preserve the integrity of our economic transactions, while we preserve the integrity of our businesses and our trade, and while we protect our people as we move forward. It will be a fantastic thing to do, and this cyber security strategy leads us in that direction, where we will ensure that we will continue to exploit our potential as a society and as a country without hurting each other individually or collectively, as it were. So I'm one of those people who are really looking forward to the completion of this exercise, Kanombati. And I'm one of those players in this sector who are enthusiastically looking forward to the outcome of this meeting here, and the advice we will receive from some of the people who are here. I've had occasion to work with some people here in the room whom I can see around, very smart people, and people for whom I thank God every day that we have such an incredible brain trust in our country. Smart people who always offer very good ideas and solutions to some of the challenges we face. And on behalf of government, I want to commit that we will take all the advice we receive from subject matter experts who are here. We'll take all advice that we receive from all the participants who are here in terms of developing this cybersecurity strategy. And when it comes to execution, we will do our part faithfully to ensure that for us in the security sector, we will do what we will be required to do in this strategy to ensure that we breathe life to it, to ensure that it actually has true and genuine meaning in our society. It's therefore my pleasure to thank you, wish you all the best, and declare this particular workshop officially open. Thank you.